Alright Guardians, we need to have a serious talk. Bungie just released an early preview of upcoming changes that will go into effect with the new Revenant episode. So these are changes that are going to be made starting with next week's reset. There's quite a lot of changes that are happening with this update. Titans are going to see adjustments made to barricades, void overshields will become more powerful, and there's a handful of sandbox adjustments that are going to affect a few different supers and different weapon archetypes. But the craziest update that's coming through with Revenant is the rework of over 20 different exotic weapons and armor pieces. While some of these changes are ones that I've waited a long time for, there's others that I'm really not happy about. And in today's video, we're going to be covering all of the changes that each of these exotics will take on. Starting with Acquire of One. This is an update that we've known about for several weeks now, but when Revenant launches, this auto rifle will now have reduced ammo reserves, dropping the base down to 200 and the maximum down to 300. The damage of point-blank projectiles will be reduced down to 50%, which is definitely going to cut down on this weapon's ability to melt enemies. But at the same time, the magazine size is getting increased from 5 projectiles to 7 projectiles. But still yet, it's definitely sad times for anyone who just devoted the time into earning and crafting this new exotic. The Huckleberry exotic SMG is getting some major adjustments, and it will now fully reload the magazine whenever landing final blows, and its catalyst has been fully redesigned to give this weapon kinetic tremors, which I think was the absolute best choice with this exotic, and I think it's really going to help this weapon excel in PvE content. The Tarrabah Solar SMG gets its own adjustments. When Ravenous Beast is active, you'll gain a 50% bonus in damage resistance, but only against incoming solar damage. In the Crucible, this will be a 15% damage resistance bonus. I would have much rather had seen this become a standard resistance bonus, but this could still prove to be a pretty significant update when in activities that have a lot of solar damage coming at you. The Symmetry Arc Scout Rifle will now build up its dynamic charges on final blows, in addition to precision hits. I'm not really sure if this is enough to make this scout rifle stand out against its competition, but it's certainly going to help. The Duality Shotgun will see some minor changes getting made to its exotic perk to help it become more effective in PvE, allowing Blackwing's damage bonus to reach its maximum efficiency at 3 stacks instead of 5, and it'll last for 10 seconds instead of 7. Not a huge change, but it should have a moderate impact. The Bad Juju will see its String of Curses trait last longer, going from a base of 3.5 seconds up to 5.5, 7.5 when its catalyst is equipped. Bungie added in a nice little asterisk to this exotic, stating that it's more haunted than it ever was before, which could have something to do with Bad Juju's special and hard to achieve ability of creating cursed thrall explosions. The Diris grenade launcher will get a pretty hefty update, which I'm really happy to see. This will now spawn a moth after 2 direct hits, instead of just on final blows, and the cooldown between moth generation has been reduced from 4 seconds down to 3. Direct impact damage will be increased by 33%, which is going to be great. Projectile velocity is also getting increased, and these projectiles will be less affected by gravity, allowing them to get to their target faster and more accurately. We spoke in a previous video about the Fighting Lion update, and it's getting volatile rounds added on every direct hit, which will add some serious levels of crowd control to a weapon that's only ever really been relevant in the Crucible. The Chaperone is another Crucible weapon that's going to see some adjustments getting made to be able to be more effective in PvE. The Roadborne exotic perk will now become triggered after landing 2 precision hits, instead of requiring a precision final blow. Roadborne will stay active for 3 additional seconds, and the Chaperone will have a 20-point increase in stability and a 25% increase in reload speed whenever Roadborne is active. This will also see an increase in base ammo reserves. So some really nice changes, but I really don't see myself going with the Chaperone when I could just as easily equip Duality or Conditional Finality. The Lumina is the final exotic weapon getting reworked, and this will now behave more like a support frame auto rifle, giving its hipfire projectiles the ability to heal nearby allies, which should really improve this weapon's ability to provide superior team support. The updates to the Lumina and Huckleberry are among the most exciting changes, and should have the most positive impact, while the nerf to the Acquire of One is by far the worst exotic weapon change. And with that, we move on to our exotic armor, where we've got a lot of things happening, and we start with Titan. The Icefall Mantle is getting a complete rework, and will no longer provide a damage bonus when activating class abilities, but instead it's going to provide a continuous source of frost armor and healing. The movement penalty is getting removed, and it can also be used with thrusters now. The burst of stasis energy that's released when activating Icefall Mantle will now freeze nearby PvE combatants, and it's going to slow other players. The loss of a ×4 weapon surge is pretty detrimental, but the added survivability is nice. I just don't think it's as beneficial when there's already several other ways of getting frost armor. The Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap is also getting reworked. This exotic now creates diamond lances from any precision hits or any final blow from any weapon type when behind a rally barricade, which is a really nice change for this exotic. Hitting a powerful enemy with a diamond lance will now create 3 stasis crystals, so this should see a pretty good rise in performance during Revenant, especially with all the stasis inspired artifact mods. The Ursa Furiosa and its corresponding spirit, the Spirit of the Bear, will now grant increased super energy whenever using the Unbreakable aspect, increasing it from 15% to 20%. Unbreakable will now grant bonus grenade energy, so this will be a really nice update to give Titans a lot more versatility and team support. The Cuirass of the Fallen Star is finally getting some adjustments, which should see a rise in Thunder Crash's use. Melee final blows will now grant super energy, and the overshield that's granted when casting your Thunder Crash has now been changed to a 50% damage resistance bonus. The damage multiplier of Fallen Sunstar and Thunder Crash has been reduced, but the base damage of Thunder Crash has been increased, so whenever using this combination together, you should end up getting similar damage numbers as before. The Mask of the Quiet One is getting a really nice upgrade, and Rapid Final Blows and Final Blows while at critical health will now grant Devour, which is a really great benefit, as that's going to grant bonus grenade energy and bonus health regeneration. When it comes to Titan exotic class items, there are 3 different spirits that will be getting adjustments, and all of these changes are being made to accommodate the use of thrusters. Spirit of the Horn will now leave behind a ball of solar energy that's going to explode and cause scorch to all nearby targets. Spirit of Alpha Lupi will now heal you and nearby allies whenever activating thrusters. The Spirit of Hoarfrost will now spawn stasis crystals whenever activating thrusters. So a lot of nice synergy that's getting created between these spirits and the thrusters ability. Next up, let's talk about Warlocks. Ballador's Wrathweavers get another round of reworks, as it now deals increased shatter damage to any target who's been frozen by the Shadebinder super. Whenever granting allies frost armor by means of the Frost Pulse or Winter's Wrath will gain bonus super energy based on how many allies are nearby. The Skull of Dire Ahamkara gets a pretty substantial upgrade, which could see this competing with the Nezarec Sin. When Devour is active, Final Blows will now start granting bonus super energy, providing between 1 and 4.5% bonus energy based on the combatant's difficulty level. I think this exotic needed a little more pizzazz to really make it shine, but the bonus super energy should still do nicely. Next up is the Sanguine Alchemy, which will see its damage bonus increased, going from a ×2 weapon surge to a ×4, but that's only when standing in a rift. And enemies that you target when in your rift will now become highlighted, and you'll deal 10% increased damage against those highlighted targets, as long as you remain within the rift. I think this is a really nice upgrade for this exotic. I just don't like being tied down into a rift for a full 15 seconds. Verity's Brow and its corresponding spirit will get a really sweet upgrade, and it now provides more upfront grenade damage, providing a 40% bonus to start with, and each subsequent stack adding on an extra 15%, building us up to a 100% bonus when at maximum charge. The Cenotaph gets a small adjustment to its user interface, and it will once again mark the targets for its wielder. The Osmiomancy Gauntlets are getting a slight nerf to the effectiveness of Cold Snap grenades. The Seekers will now have a 50% reduction to their speed and travel distance, but since there's no change to the amount of grenade energy getting returned, this should still be a pretty minimal impact, as the change is primarily intended to resolve issues within the Crucible. The Speaker's Sight will also get some slight adjustments, but only when it comes to Crucible, and it's now going to provide an Orb of Power after 6 instances of healing allies. Overall, there's some pretty sweet changes happening for Warlocks, but some of these changes could have been a bit more substantial. And with that, we move on to Hunters. And I just gotta say, I think Hunters are really getting screwed, at least when it comes to the Lucky Pants. This exotic rework looks more like a complement sandwich, as will gain increased movement speed and slide distance whenever a hand cannon is equipped. We're also no longer bound to using a hand cannon that matches our super's energy type, which is a really nice change. There's also some slight adjustments getting made to the Out of Luck cooldown, but at the same time, the maximum damage bonus that this exotic provides is getting reduced from 600% down to 450. Now that might not seem like a big deal to someone that's never used a hunter or never used a lucky pants, but this is an absurd level of damage reduction that's going to have a huge impact towards hunters' damage potential, and I'm really not happy about it, not at all. Moving on, we have the young Ahamkara Spine, which is getting another round of reworks, allowing this exotic to build up bonus grenade energy whenever damaging targets with trip mines, in addition to final blows. This will now provide 33% bonus energy whenever damaging targets with trip mines, so this might finally see this exotic becoming pretty viable. Up next is the Blight Ranger, which is getting a complete overhaul, which it really needed, and it's now taken on many of the benefits that the Raiju's harness previously provided. When canceling your Arc Staff, you'll send out a burst of energy that damages and blinds nearby enemies, and you'll gain a ×4 Arc Weapon Surge. Deflecting damage with Arc Staff will now generate bonus super energy, allowing you to extend the duration of this super. This should see this exotic finally becoming viable, at least in general gameplay scenarios, but I honestly see it becoming more impactful in the Crucible. And with that, we move on to the Raiju's harness, and because its traits have been moved over to the Blight Ranger, it's been given a whole new lineup of abilities. Whenever activating Gathering Storm, lightning strikes will come down and hit all nearby targets, causing them to become jolted and causing you and nearby allies to become amplified. Defeating enemies who are under the effects of Jolt or Blind will now provide bonus super energy, allowing you to activate Gathering Storm much more often. I'm really excited about this change, especially with how it's going to interact with the Prismatic subclass. There's one final exotic rework getting made for hunters, and that's in regard to the Spirit of Syntheseps. Whenever using Stylish Executioner, the bonus melee damage that this spirit provides is going to be reduced by 50%, which is a pretty substantial blow for hunters, but only when using the Spirit of Syntheseps with the Stylish Executioner. So not quite as detrimental as the Lucky Pants, but it's still going to have an impact. There's a lot of really good changes that are getting made with some of these exotics, but when it comes to exotics like the Icefall Mantle, the Choir of One, and the Lucky Pants especially, I'm really feeling let down because some of these changes are just absolute ass. But with that said, we've come to an end of today's preview on all of the exotic reworks that are going to be taking place during the new Revenant episode. Are any of these changes impacting your favorite weapons and builds? If so, let us know down in the comments below, and let us know what exotic changes you're most excited about. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new place to call home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's down in the description, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.